I have another social norm kind of popped up in my mind during this conversation, and it's about social media. If I think a common social norm is that you're expected to have, actually, there's multiple social norms, but one social norm is you're expected to have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, or other miscellaneous accounts. And if you don't have any social media, you're weird. Like I think I catch myself doing this, but sometimes when like I think I see someone's like, oh, I don't have any social media, I'm like, oh, this neckbeard looking Reddit ass, like he probably just hates humankind. Like he's been burned. He can't even contemplate the idea of connecting with other people. And then obviously sometimes later I'm just like, okay, that's really judgmental of me to do. But sometimes like the people kind of fit that mold, and the next time I see someone like that, I'm just like, you're one of them. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Nuanced Nonsense. We're not experts, but we just like talking. This is your co-host Alex.
This is your other co-host Ben.
And today I brought in my friend Zhida. Zhida is a friend of mine from church. He's currently attending Dallas Theological Seminary, and he might become a pastor one day. So our most pious guest has come on the podcast.
I'm just like everybody else, man. I'm not pious.
But yeah, anything else you would like to add, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, basically the way this happened was I was listening to Alex and Ben's podcast on my drive to school, and it reminded me of my days in college and after college. And I was like, hey, I feel like I could probably talk about this as well. So I was like, yo, plug me in, bro.
And here we are today. But yeah, for today's intro question, can y'all give an example of an awkward situation that y'all have been in? Something that's like really cringy.
Okay, so like before we get into this, I'll answer first. But like before we get into this, the more I look at Zhita's background, the more it looks like one of those like green screen, and then you like paste something on, because like the outline of like your shirt against the thing is so like solid, it makes it look like it's a green screen.
This is a real background. This is no fake Zoom stuff right here. Hey, look, I'm gonna touch the background, and you're gonna see it move. Watch.
Wow.
That's editing.
Ooh, that's some really good
Ripples
CGI
in the background. Okay,
wow.
That would have to be some advanced Zoom magic.
Not gonna lie, that is a dilemma I've kind of faced, where I'm like questioning, like, is that a real background, or is that just someone just picks a really good picture? Like one time someone had a background where he was at like the UT Union, and I was like, damn. I was like, I can't tell if he's actually there or not. And today, like, there was a communion for church, which is like, you just do some like kind of like ritual where you take bread and drink something for some Christian tradition. And then I think the pastor was actually at church, but for a brief second, I contemplated, dude, that must be really good green screen. And yeah, I can't tell what's reality anymore. But yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so I feel like I've told this story a bunch for like interviews and stuff. It's like, what is your most embarrassing like story? It's just like a playful question to add to the interview. And like for me, it's like I went to this party in early part of college. I can't remember if it was sophomore year or freshman year, but it's like I go to this party and we're like drinking a bunch, and then my friend's like, oh hey, come over here, come meet my friend. And I come over to him. He's like introducing me to someone, and I was like, oh hey, my name's Ben. And then she like, it was really loud, so she's like, what are you? And like we're at an Asian party, mind you, right? So like it's pretty obvious she's not asking about my race. And then I was just like, oh, I'm Asian, because I was like mildly intoxicated at this point. So I was like, oh crap. Like as soon as I said it, I like sobered up. I was like, oh fuck, I look like an idiot. And then my friend just started bursting out laughing, and she just like gave me the strangest look. And then I just like played it off as like some random BS. But like after like she left to like go say hi to another friend, my friend just started laughing even harder, and he was like, what the fuck were you saying?
Smooth. I'm surprised you said I'm Asian instead of like I'm Chinese or Thai or something.
Yeah, like I don't know, because like this is a college party. Generally, when people ask that, they're asking like freshman, sophomore, like junior, senior, and it's just like I just defaulted to my race despite everyone else being of that race at this party.
Unique costume.
Nice. Okay, I guess for me, an awkward situation that just happened an hour ago. I was playing frisbee with some friends, right? And then after the game, there's a lot of new people that I haven't met before. So I went around and said hi to them. And then this one girl, um, I was like, "Oh, have we met?" And she was like, "No." And then I extended my hand to do a handshake, but she had already extended her fist for a fist bump. Right. Okay. So then I didn't continue into that Kamehameha thing, but I changed my hand to a fist, and then she changed her fist to a hand. Right. And then we alternated fist and hand like 5 times trying to match each other, and then ultimately I just put my fist in her hand and went up and down with that. Yeah. So I didn't find that awkward personally, but I think she did. I just found it hilarious.
That's good, making the most out of every situation.
This reminds me of like when like you're going the same like opposite directions in a hallway, right? And you're trying to get out of each other's way, but instead of going opposite directions, you go the same direction. You just like go back and forth. And like most of the time when you're walking down a hallway, like let's say you're going to class or something, you're not paying attention. You're like looking at your phone, looking into the distance, and then it's like you do that and you're like, what the heck? And then you look up, and it's like sometimes it happens to me. It's like we both look up at the same time, and we're like,
Dude, it's unintentional synergy. But yeah, for mine, it's probably more embarrassing than awkward. But one time, I was going to like a large group, like it was like a Christmas party because it was like the last large group for the semester. I think this was like 2 years ago, so my junior year of college, and it was raining really hard, and my umbrella at the time like was kind of bad. So like some umbrellas are like wind resistant or whatever. So mine wasn't, so it kept on inverting. So then as I was like walking to it was at like the room was inside the UT stadium, like the football stadium, and then my apartment is like I don't know, like probably 20 minutes walking from that. So then I was walking for a bit and they kept on inverting, so I was like, fuck this. So then I just stopped. So I just left it inverted and I just walked across campus, right? And at first I was like, it's no big deal. And then I kind of forgot about it because it's been a while. So then the two girls walked past me and they were giggling. And at first I was like, oh, maybe it's because like I'm so cool and suave. And they're just laughing at me because they just were so odd. And I realized, oh no, it's because my umbrella's inverted. So then I just uninverted that and I just walked away in shame. And that was a pretty embarrassing 2 seconds. And then I saw some friends and recounted the story and they laughed at me. But yeah,
Wait, so when your umbrella inverted, it didn't accumulate water from the concave shape?
it probably did, but I was just cringing on the inside that it didn't notice. Plus, like the fact it was like windy and inverted, like I was already kind of wet.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't even know if like maybe I just don't use umbrellas improperly, but or I'm not just like holding it, but whenever I do like hold umbrellas, like my feet and like my like sleeves will always be wet regardless. So yeah.
you got to hold it against the wind. The strategy I use is like, okay, so like, let's say the wind is coming like forward at you. I sort of like tilt my umbrella at the wind. So it's like 45 degrees at the wind. So like the rain is like coming straight down, right? But then the wind is pushing it at you. So then it like changes the angle of the rain. So I'm like, I try to like compensate the angle of my umbrella to try to like shield the maximum amount of rain. But I mean, if it's raining that hard, it's just over.
I think it might have been the latter situation, but yeah, I think in general, I just had to hold it like this, and that might just be not the move because like either way I'm screwed. But yeah, you know, thankfully I'm just inside most of the time when it's raining now, so haven't had to deal with that type of situation for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I asked this question because yeah, when me and Zita we went to a farewell party for someone in her church. Uh, yeah, and I didn't really know her. I think she joined our church as I was in college, so I was like, should I even go? But I knew if I asked someone, they would always say, "Yeah, you should still come," because like if you say don't come, that's like pretty rude. So it was really up to me if I wanted to come. And I was like, okay, I really don't know this girl. So like if I'm there, I'm not gonna talk to her like at all because it's just awkward. And but on the other hand, I was like, I go like I leave my house like once a week for like some also something church related. So I was like, it would be really nice to kind of get out of the house like for once, and see other people part of like our ministry that I don't really see because it's divided into like geographical areas. So I kind of see like one area, but then the other area I don't really see. I was like, okay, I'll go. And I went there and as I predicted, I didn't talk to her at all. And I left like after like an hour because like it ended shorter than I thought it would. So I was like, it wasn't like, I mean, I don't think anyone questioned like why I was there because it's not like you really know like what my relationship and the farewell recipient whoever like relationship is, right? So but I was just like, social norms would dictate that I would just have common sense and not come. But also social norm is like when you ask someone, like they're not going to deny you or prevent you from coming because like that's also goes against social norms. So I guess what I wanted to ask is like, what are some social norms that y'all think is like pretty dumb and would be better off like we just went against it?
Your thoughts, Zeta? You also went to this party.
I did. I knew the person a little bit better. Um, I think it takes a little bit of discretion. There's no black and white answer, but if you know that the function is going to be just basically a social, then I think basically anybody can go. Because nobody is going to scrutinize whether you're good friends with this person or not. Whereas if it's like a birthday party where everyone's focusing on that one person the whole time, um, that question could come up of why are you here?
Yeah, I can get behind that. I also feel like on top of the situation dependency thing, I think it's also like about if this is like being hosted by like who is it being hosted by, right? If it's being hosted by a singular person, i.e., like it's a farewell party for this person or a birthday party for this person, generally your association with the host does come up. Or like let's say even like another situation like a house party, right? It's like generally you should know the host because you're going into their like place, or like you should be of some relation to a guest, right? Like, oh, I am like this person's significant other, or I'm like this person's good friend, or yada yada yada. And as opposed to like a singular host versus like this is like an org event, then it's like they would encourage just random people to come.
Right. So if we were gonna give like college examples for this, if it's like a frat party, like you probably don't care who the host is. You just go there and get wasted, right? But if it's a smaller, intimate house party, I think the move is probably, if you don't know the host, the move is probably to at least introduce yourself to the host and establish that friendship and say, oh, I'm the friend of so and so. That way you kind of have a connection there.
Wait, so also on top of this, so you think it is common etiquette to introduce yourself to a host at like an intimate house party, right?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so there's a story that happened. One time I was hosting one of those house parties, and then so like some of my friends come and there's like, oh, can I bring my girlfriend? And I was like, go for it, I don't care. And then the girlfriend comes and she never introduces herself to me. She never speaks to me. She was kind of like attached to her boyfriend the whole time. And I was like, I like in my head, I was like, am I like being like bad or something? But I was like, no, I feel like it should be common courtesy to at least introduce yourself to the host. You don't have to continue to talk to them. But like that's what I was thinking. And so I was like,
I
Yeah,
remember this
I think
story.
it's also possibly in the guys who's the boyfriend. It's also possibly in his court to say, "Hey, this is my girlfriend." I think that's also a very common social norm.
Did you talk to him at the party, the boyfriend?
yeah, I did. I like when I greeted him at the door and I was like, yo, what's up, man? I haven't seen you a bit. And the girlfriend just like makes eye contact with me. And if I remember correctly, she just like how like bros, when like you see them like at a distance, you just like either do this or you like nod at them.
Just do the head nod.
Acknowledgement. She did that to me. And I was just so confused. I was like, this is prior to COVID too. So this is not like some strange thing that's like happening.
Maybe she just saw you as a bro, just automatically like that.
You said my boyfriend's bros are also my bros.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I remember you telling me this because I think I was also was I in the apartment?
No, you weren't.
Oh, okay, I wasn't. Because sometimes there will be parties where I'm just in my room because like I'm not really I don't really know anyone at the party, nor do I really want to like come out. But yeah, I feel like, dude, part of me is like I feel like I've probably like done what the girlfriend did to you to somebody, but I can't really recall because for the most part, if I come to some like an event, like I probably want to be there, except for maybe yesterday's event. But yesterday's event had the caveat of it wasn't hosted by her, so
Oh, okay.
I technically didn't have to say anything to her, even if that defeats the purpose. But I think it was widely acknowledged that the event was also there was a secondary purpose of just getting everyone to come out. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'll capitalize on that second purpose to make myself not feel
The
that awkward.
the event was hosted by like our ministry at our church for young adults. So basically, it was just a time to get together, sing songs, chat, catch up. One person made some brownies, and we were just chilling, basically.
To bounce back to a situation Alex said earlier, and he was like, there have been times where like he's hosted things and I've just been in the apartment. I've hosted things where he's been in the apartment. And so it's like, so there have been a couple times, standout times, where it's like, I bring some friends over, we're drinking, and then they like go to Alex and they're like, hey, do you want to join us? We're already here. You're already here. Like, and then Alex, like, he doesn't want to like sound like rude, but he's like, he doesn't want to join because he doesn't want to interrupt. So he's like, oh no, it's okay. I'll just like close the door and be in here. What do you think is like the move that you quote unquote should be doing?
Okay, so I think it's up to Alex whether he wants to drink or not. If he really doesn't want to drink that night, he could just be like, yo, I got an exam to study for the next day, or I got a lot of work to work on. Just give yourself an out to not drink. Or if you don't have anything going on, but you still want to meet the people, I think you could still hang out with them and just not drink. They'll look at you funny, but you can finesse your way into doing that too.
I don't think I was opposed to drinking. I think I was just more like, because this was like one of Ben's friend groups, and then I guess in my perspective, I was like, oh, I don't want to intrude on someone's friend group because like I feel like that's really weird. That might be an unspoken social norm though, right? But I feel like at least Ben has told me stories where like, someone like he's hanging out as a group and someone kind of just inserts himself in and it just feels really awkward. But the correct thing to do, or the nice thing to do, is to not acknowledge that, right? And just be like, oh, it's all good. But it might be like an unsaid thought in everyone's mind that they're like, hey, this guy is like who does this guy think he is? He's just coming in, right? Like kind of, I don't know, like Mean Girls, like type of clicky-ish. I made a Mean Girls comparison when I never watched Mean Girls, but yeah, y'all get my point.
Yeah, that's still a good comparison to that movie.
I think there is a caveat though to make, that instead of you inserting yourself, my friends asked you, do you want to join?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference. If Ben or the friends like pulled you in and invited you to drink, I don't think there's anything wrong with inserting yourself, because then you're not inserting yourself per se. You're accepting their invite.
So then I guess the question now is, was it more awkward to turn it down versus like actually just going in?
Nah, I think turning it down is still okay. Mostly because if they're going to be drinking, they're not going to pay any attention anyway.
Mm,
They're just going to forget about it anyway. Um, so I
that's
don't think
true.
there's a bad move here, to be honest.
That's true. I honestly forgot about myself until 5 minutes ago when Ben brought it up.
Thinking back on it, would you still have like repeated the same move? I was just curious.
Probably not. I don't remember why I turned y'all down aside from that reason. Maybe because it was a late Saturday night and I had to drive people to church the next day too. That could have been a possibility. I don't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday, but yeah, maybe second on the second run through, like I'd probably just join. Why not? I mean, they did. I think your friend group did ask me twice, like
Yeah.
A, if I wanted to drink, and B, if I wanted to go downtown with them. So I was like, oh, okay.
One of those is much higher commitment than the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the downtown one I may have just turned down because definitely coming. I think he came back at like pretty late. So
Yeah, I think I came back really late because so to give a perspective, at like UT Austin, there's this place that a lot of college students like to go drinking called 6th Street.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
What happens is the clubs close at 2 a.m., but like you don't get home until way later because either you're getting price surge or like high traffic from all of the Ubers / Lyfts / all whatever those services coming in that area, cycling around trying to get their passengers in the sea of like intoxicated college students. And top of the fact that like some people are like walking like off the distance to get like a less trafficked area, which is what we did. And so we like walked off and like just randomly away from 6th Street. And it's like, we're all intoxicated, mind you. So it's like, we don't know where we're going, what we're doing. And so there's a lot of that going on.
yeah, I don't know. I don't really think of it as a missed opportunity, but yeah, maybe looking back, could have hopped on. But I guess we all have different interpretations of social norms, right? Because I guess at the moment, my priority was like, oh, I just don't want to be that weird dude who's just in the photo for some reason, you know. But I think another social norm that kind of pops up in my head is, you know, like when people go on trips or like they're always like, sometimes like you see like a picture and you're like, oh, that's such a random group, you know. And I think there's an unspoken social norm that like, oh yeah, like it makes the most sense to go on a trip with like your close friends, right? So like, you know, basically the clique. And if you like, I mean, you know, even these trips it doesn't even have to be a trip necessarily. Like if someone, you know, goes to the movie with like a random group or does anything with a random group, that's pretty weird. So I don't know, do you all think that norm is kind of bogus or like, does it implicitly make sense?
You mean the norm of going on like either a road trip or a plane trip only with really close friends?
Yeah, basically.
I would say I've made friends on trips that I didn't know before that started out random and then they became my friends afterwards. So I think it's hit or miss. Sometimes you don't vibe with that person too much, but sometimes you make a friend. And the way I know this is because one of my friends, his name sounds like Bollywood, but he goes on trips like every month, right, to national parks, and he always grabs a bunch of random different people. And sometimes I go, sometimes I don't. But because he just grabs whoever is down, um, it's like a new group every time, right? So there have been trips where I've met guys or girls that I still hang out with, and I think I wouldn't have met them if I didn't take that chance to go on a trip with some random people.
Sounds legit. That's a good counter argument. What do you think, Ben?
I think it's pretty legit both ways because like there's things like hostels and like you just go to them. Like let's say you go backpacking by yourself. You obviously want to be in hostels to like meet other people your age, just like backpacking around. And just in general, I have several friends that like to go just solo trip and then just like see what happens. I'm just like, that's very brave of you. I would never do the same, but you know, there's a lot of stuff going on like that. However, I feel like I would stray on the air of caution like Alex, because me and Alex were planning a trip to Japan prior to COVID. And we thought a lot about the group dynamics. We're like, oh, like this, that, this. And it's just like, I think the problem with it is you can get in over your head, but I think there's a legitimate reason for why you should think about things like this, because it's like, I think a lot of times, especially when you plan like a larger trip, like it's really important to know that the person or the group of people you're being around for like 30 days, 40 days is like, you mesh well with them to some degree.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that for sure. If you're planning like a month long like backpacking type trip where you're gonna be sleeping with these people like 30, 40 days, then yeah, I think the risk of it being a hit or miss is proportional to how long that trip is in days.
Yeah. I think the balance maybe is like, because like I'm assuming that your friend who picks the people to go on the trip, even if it's random, he probably had like, I guess, some taste or like some idea like, hey, even though these people don't know each other, they'll probably get along fine, right? And it's like it kind of works out because I guess he gets to see a new, I guess his friend groups kind of colliding, and then you guys get to meet new friends.
Yeah. So that's true that the common factor in all those groups is him. So that means that the people he's bringing are people that would get along with him. So it's more likely we would get along with each other. That's a good point. Well, that brings a question I have actually. Do you guys advocate merging your friend groups together, or do you keep them separated?
I was about to talk about that. And it's just like, I get so much anxiety whenever like friend groups mix, like even unintentionally. Like whenever I'm like with like, let's say X friend group and I'm just walking around and I run into like Y friend group, it just makes me so anxious. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think for me, I think on paper I would say like, oh yeah, it's great for my friends to meet. But I think honestly I like to keep it separate because like I think of it like when I was a kid, like sometimes like I would go to the movies and then I was too shy to actually invite my friend, so my mom did it, and she just randomly invited different different groups of my friends or like people from different areas of my life. So like some like a childhood friend, a friend from the swim team, something like that. And I just remember being so like nervous because like I think my childhood friend was kind of like making random comments during the movie, and if it was just me and him, I wouldn't care. But since like I think someone from the swim team or some other friend was there, I was like, oh, what if he thinks he's annoying? Like that would look bad on me. So then, yeah, I think like it's also easier for um yeah, just friend groups to be separate a bit. I also have a more petty reason as to why I like to keep my friend group separate, and it won't. I won't look good, but to be honest, I think a big reason why I like to keep it separate is I'm afraid they'll like my friend more than me.
Or what if they realize that Alex has friends here and he has friends there, and he's a popular dude that's a member of both groups, and he gives you social credit?
That's big brain. I haven't thought about that. I think more like, oh, these are people who I'm kind of friends with. I don't know super well, but I like to, and I bring some other friend, and I'm just like, oh, this friend is so cool, and then they're just like, and every time like they see me, they're like, how's this friend doing? It's a very specific example because that has happened to me. So now I'm just like, damn, I'm not good enough, huh?
Wait, has it happened
Alex,
to where they started hanging out with each other without you?
No.
dude, Alex has got beta cug brain.
It's a friendship cuckold.
I think that worst case scenario is very unlikely to where they just
Mm.
like be better friends with the other person than you. Because you're
Yeah,
you're
what are
still
your
like the common factor. Just like my friend who's inviting all these people on national park trips, you're still the common bond that's holding the friend groups together.
yeah, but what are your thoughts on the friend groups merging slash keeping them separate?
Man, I used to keep them separated, and the reason for that is kind of personal because when I graduated college, Um, I had a lot of roots in different friend groups, and it was also around the time I started going back to church again. So I had some friend groups who were like very anti-Christian, and I had, of course, my Christian friends in church, right? And I think if people are listening to this who are religious or believe in the faith, they probably don't really mix the non-faith friends and the faith friends. Um, so I didn't do that because I didn't want to look bad in front of my non-faith friends. I didn't want them to think I was some kind of goody two-shoes Christian. Um, and I also didn't want to get into a debate about like religious issues. So at first I didn't, but the past few years I just stopped caring as much, and I'm like, I'm gonna be the same person with this group and this group, and I'm just gonna mix it, bro. I'm mixing.
That's good. Be your true self, no matter the circumstances.
I also
That's the
think
goal.
one like primary explanatory factor for this could be the fact that some people like sort of have a different facade, or like not even facade because that has a negative connotation, but they show a different face depending on who they're in front of. And then if you are like vastly different from friend group to friend group, there could be a lot of like mental cohesion and cognitive dissonance happening whenever you mix the friend groups. Because like let's say you act like really like polite with these friends, and then like you're really like, I don't know, degenerate with these other group of friends. When the two mix, like it's also clashing within yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that um, like I've definitely been around a friend who like we were. Well, I think it's an interesting comparison because like we're in multiple friend groups together, so I've seen different sides of him when he's around different people, and yeah, I guess to me it just feels kind of weird, but like I still recognize he is being him. He is still being true to himself. He's just a multifaceted person. But yeah, have y'all ever been in that situation as well? But Zita, you can go ahead, say what you're saying before you answer that question.
Um, Wait, what was Ben saying? Remind me again.
So I was talking about like how sometimes you can show a different face of yourself depending on like who you're with. For
Oh
example,
yeah.
you're with coworkers
Okay.
versus like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember now. Okay. I just had a brain fart right there. So basically, yeah, I also used to have different faces for different people, different friend groups. But the reason I decided to try to keep the same face for everybody is because I'm an introvert. Okay. And when an introvert tries to act like someone they're not, if they try too hard to like fit in to the social group that they're in, it's very draining. It takes a lot of energy. So if I'm always trying to like act one way for one group and a different way for a different group, I just end up tired all the time. And it's just a lot less effort just to throw caution to the wind and just say F it and be myself. Um, so yeah, I would say I I have shown different faces, but I try to keep myself similar to all my friend groups.
How about you, Ben? Do you try to keep the same face, or you have different aspects? You show different aspects of yourself when you're with different people.
So I think I may have said this on a prior episode, but I think I might as well say it again, is the fact that it's like, I feel like for me growing up, like I think I'm still introverted now, but like I think a major thing about me is I felt like growing up, I was like, I can't let the introvertism really rule my life, because like there are aspects of introvertism that I really like, and that's why I still consider myself an introvert. But like there are parts of it where it's like this is not conducive to like taking initiative, making friends. I was like sometimes you gotta like step outside your comfort bubble, and I think that's like where a lot of people sort of like are able to make that distinction, where it's like introvert versus like extroverted introvert, right? Where you still identify as an introvert, but you can have extroverted tendencies. And so I feel like I identify in that, but a little bit more extreme, because I feel like for me, the way I started like going about that was I was like, oh, you know, if I just be like an actor in a play, or if I put on a mask, I'm able to like act like really troll in public and just like have very, very sort of like degenerate humor and laugh really loud, talk really loud, and sort of be that sort of presence. And I remember Alex was telling me this. He was like, he was able to categorize my friends of how close they were to me, depending on how they described me. Because if they described me as like very loud and like very degenerate and like very like these types of things, there's not necessarily bad characteristics, because it's like it shows that you have a lot of charisma and you like are able to mesh well with people. But he was talking about like the people who describe me as like pensive and like thoughtful and like would always ask like these types of questions and like would talk a lot and like think a lot, are the types of people he would associate as my close friends, because that's a type of thing that I really like to think about and ponder about, hence the podcast.
Mm. That's the real Ben, man. You gotta let him out.
The real Slim Ben. Will you please stand up? But yeah, I think something I also want to emphasize is that, like, I guess Ben's like sense of humor, like, or his, you know, he degenerate side is still like the real him as well. Like, he's not like faking it, or like, you know, like really trying to, I don't know, like simulate something in his head. Like, oh, would this be funny if I say something really troll? Like, tries it out. Okay, yes, add it to the playbook. You know. Yeah, I think I just thought it was interesting because, like, I think because I was exposed to that side of him at home, like, in my head I was like, it's no brainer that Ben's an introvert, you know. But then I realized like not everyone sees that side. So like even people who might have considered themselves close with Ben or like spend a lot of time with him, like they may not see that, right? And I think it kind of goes to show, like, I think there's even like times like you spend time with like your family and like you'll probably see all the negative, the worst sides of your parents. So then that's like kind of what you view your parents as, right? But then in public, like your parents are going to be a lot more polite and nicer. So usually maybe sometimes your friends will be like, oh yeah, your mom's really chill, you know? Like I've definitely done that to like my friend. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like your dad's like really chill. Like I've never seen him get mad. And he's just like, he just stared at me. He's like, oh, you don't know anything. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and having my mom like yell at me behind closed doors, and then I have my friend over, and she's super nice and super hospitable, and treats me like she didn't just yell at me 5 minutes ago. I hated that. I was like, why are you acting so weird, man?
But yeah, to circle back to the social norms thing, another thing that I was thinking about as we were doing this, I was like, have you ever heard of the concept of like dating yourself or going on dates by yourself as a form of self-love? Because like the reason why I bring this up in terms of social norms is because if you saw that in person, it's like, I think people think it's very strange upon first viewing, right? For example, if you see someone by themselves at a movie theater, at a restaurant, at like these things that are typically categorized by like couple activities or group activities. Like, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that is definitely a social norm that there are certain places in society that are like couple activities, um, like the movies, right? But I think I think if you really want to see a movie, you shouldn't let a social norm just prevent you from seeing it. You know, you should just go, and it's going to be uncomfortable at first. I agree with that, but like you can't let society stop you from doing what you want to do just because they expect you to go with a date. You know, and also I would add that um, people are I think people are getting in relationships less than before. I think there's more single people. And I'm basing that hypothesis on the fact that the average age of marriage has gone from 22 in the 90s to 30 for men in 2017, I believe. So people are taking forever like to commit to a person. And I think there's a lot more empowerment of singles in society right now. So that's just my take.
Yeah, I think we're in like kind of a weird transitionary phase where like people are trying to say like it's okay to be single. Like if you're single, you know, if you're never married, like it doesn't mean that you're some loser that nobody wanted. Like 'cause you have choice, right? But then the people, like older people who live in previous generations, where like you, like marriage is kind of the end game, you know, aren't gonna suddenly switch from that type of mindset. So I think you're kind of juggling. It kind of becomes like an old versus young, like Zoomer versus Boomer argument. Um, so sorry, I said that right when Zito was drinking. I was like, oh, that may not have been good.
No, I controlled that water, bro.
All right, I'm proud of you.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I think because of that, it's like I think people are kind of receiving mixed signals, right? They don't know if it's okay to be single or just do things by yourself, right? And I think like freshman year of college, you know, touched upon the college episode that like didn't really have friends to do stuff with, so that also meant like I couldn't really try restaurants by myself. So a lot of like the restaurants that everyone has like been to, like I don't know, like Franklin's or I did end up going to some restaurants later, but like I don't know, like Julie's or whatever famous Austin restaurant, like I never went to because I was like, oh, it's weird to go by myself. I'm not gonna ask because in my head that would be weird, maybe another social norm. And yeah, because of that, like I think like my only excuse to try restaurants was when I went to church for Sunday lunch, and low key that became a big part as to why I went to church because not like freshman year I didn't really care, you know, I was just trying to make some friends. So I remember one time I went to some restaurant because I think I had to study for a test, so I asked to be dropped off the campus. So I went to a restaurant by myself, and then I don't think anyone cared, but I was so self conscious, you know, and I was trying to eat as quick as possible, and then just like dip because I didn't want anyone to see me or be like, "Hey, Alex, why are you by yourself? You have no friends? Are you gonna?" And then like say every insecurity I have, and I'm just like, "All right, it's a mission. Eat this as fast as possible."
Mm. I mean, worst case, you could like get it for takeout or get a delivery, and you could just eat it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's usually what I did later on. I just did takeout, but I think I really wanted to eat like noodle soup that day, so that's why I
But you
ate in the
can't take that
restaurant.
out.
Yeah, or you can. I do now because of COVID, but yeah, it's still not the move.
Hmm.
I do agree with Zeta how there is like some levels of comfort. Like I went to watch a movie by myself semi recently. I think it's like been 3 months now. But anyway, I went to go watch a movie by myself because I was like, I really, really want to see this. And I did ask a ton of friends. I was like, you want to go see this with me? And it eventually just turned out everyone said no because of like either COVID reasons or just like timing reasons or haven't seen the other stuff in the franchise. And so I ended up going by myself because I was like, I can't let COVID stop me.
Hmm.
I've been waiting for this movie forever. And so I was like, I'm just going to wear a mask, be safe, and just like go by myself, screw everyone else. And when I first sat down, I was like, holy moly. Like I kept checking my phone. I was like as if like someone were going to like, oh, I want to come just last minute. I was just like really nervous. But then as soon as the ad stopped and the movie started, I just was immersed in the movie and I didn't care. Like I think once you overcome that first hump of like uncomfort and anxiety and nervousness, you can really enjoy the experience and sort of like take it all in because it's just yourself, you know, you only have yourself to like critique and like think about this experience.
Right, right. And also you can think of it like almost like a muscle, right? So if you go to the movie for the first time and you're super uncomfortable and you're checking your phone, you're getting anxiety, but then you just power through it. The next time you want to see a movie and no one's available, you now have the experience of doing it by yourself if you want to, right? So now you can do it and have even less anxiety than before because you have experience doing it before. And basically, you just build up this really thick skin to where you just don't give a damn what anyone thinks. I still do. I'm not trying to flex on y'all saying that, oh, I'm absolutely careless about anybody. But I think it is something you can build up. You can build up your inner confidence in doing what you want to do without having to fall into social norms, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good. I like the muscle analogy, right? Because I guess if you never, I guess like an exercise, if you never like push push yourself, like strain your muscles, tear the fibers apart so it can rebuild itself stronger, or however the hell PT stuff works. Like you're never gonna grow, right? And I feel like if you don't put yourself in uncomfortable situations, um, like you're never gonna be okay with it later on, even if you want to be.
Okay, so I have another question. And this is also related to social norms. So this I feel like this one could perhaps be a doozy. Is like the idea of like letting social norms dictate your relationship standing. And I think this is like very, very general in the sense that's like a lot of people do this, right? For example, like you see, I don't know, your friend, they like meet someone and then 1 month later they're dating. And then I think the most automatic response is, oh, they did that really quickly. Or like you can take a step further, like they're dating for that 1 month and then they get married like 2 months later. Like, oh, that was so fast. That was like a shotgun marriage, And I think there's a lot of social norms sort of attached to relationships. Like, for example, another one is you ask like what's going on between like two people, right? And then a lot of the times the answer generally falls in between 0 and 10, right? With 0 being like they're purely platonic friends and 10 being they're like committed 100%, going to get married, going to like all the way, right? Generally, the answer falls anywhere between that range. But I think the thing that a lot of people like to hear is either the 0 or the 10, because then I think society sort of dictates that anything in between there is connotated with problems. And I think that's very strange because I think every relationship is unique and it should go at its own pace. Therefore, it's like if you're stuck in like this complicated zone for like 10 years and then it works out, like I think that's perfectly fine. But I think whenever you explain it to your friends, there's always like sort of like a reception of shock.
Wait, sorry, did you ask a question like what were you thinking? What do we think about that social norm?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like what your thoughts are in like these types of like social norms and how they affect a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely the social norms can end up being harmful in that like they might make someone feel pressured to maybe continue a relationship that might not be suited for them. So like maybe a hypothetical situation might be like maybe like a 27, 28-year-old woman who's like dating some guy who, she's kind of just been dating just cause like it was not too bad, but she's not like super satisfied. But then her parents are like, hey, you need to get married, and she's just like, okay. And then like, because it's not bad, but it's not good, she kind of just ends up in a marriage for probably life that like she's not super satisfied in. And it can lead to like some, I don't know, like long-term ramifications later on. I think maybe other situations are just like, I know for like maybe like evangelical, like church culture, like there's a lot of expectation to be married pretty soon. Like I think there's a lot of emphasis on starting a family. So a lot of people might struggle with the idea of singleness because if they don't have a partner, people will be asking like, hey, what's up? Like, are you, they'll just ask if something's basically wrong with you. And that can cause a lot of, mental health problems. So I definitely think I think sometimes when like people enforce these social norms, even if it's like unconscious, like it can lead to some harmful effects on people.
Yeah, definitely. And to give some context on the evangelical background, there are some churches that have what's called single ministries, where the purpose of gathering this group of people is just to have single people meet each other so they can eventually get married. Like it's basically like speed dating for church. So that's how much emphasis there is on getting married in like Southern evangelical context. I think going back to what I said earlier about like letting society dictate what you want to do, if you apply that to a relationship and you let society or the church or your parents tell you, hey, you should marry this person, what you're doing is letting them dictate your relationship with the other person. You're letting them dictate your life. And more importantly, you're stopping yourself from acting in your own best interest sometimes. Because your parents' interest is maybe not your interest, right? And society's interest is maybe not your interest. And what may work for society might not work for you. So yeah, I do think I agree that it's a problem to have these expectations put on people, but those expectations are so ingrained in everybody's mind. You don't just see it in church, but you see it in movies, you see it in Hollywood, you see it with your friends, you see it in dating apps. Like everybody is talking about, oh, who's my soulmate? It's cuffing season. Who am I going to get? And it's just, I think it's just the wrong reason to approach a relationship at all.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of times it ends up being about like the status. Like it's become like the relationship becomes like a means to an end when like I, ideally like a relationship should just be for the literally for the process, right? Like you're trying to grow and have similar goals together, right? Like a Christian couple might, want to say like, oh, we want to grow closer to God. Um, some couples are like, we want to have children and like settle down. So like that's their goal. So I think a lot of times when it's just like, oh, I just wanted to get married. So like, people will stop asking if I'm gay or something. Like it can be, yeah, it can be pretty harmful. But I have another social norm kind of popped up in my mind during this conversation, and it's about social media. If I think a common social norm is that you're expected to have, actually there's multiple social norms, but one social norm is you're expected to have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, or other miscellaneous accounts. And if you don't have any social media, you're weird. Like I think I catch myself doing this, but sometimes when like I think I see someone's like, oh, I don't have any social media, I'm like, oh, this neckbeard looking Reddit ass, like he probably just hates humankind. Like he's been burned. He can't even contemplate the idea of connecting with other people. And then obviously sometimes later I'm just like, okay, that's really judgmental of me to do. But sometimes like the people kind of fit that mold, and the next time I see someone like that, I'm just like, you're one of them. But in reality, like some people have privacy reasons. Some people just view it as a waste of time. Like social media is pretty toxic. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this social norm?
I think part of the reason is jumping in on the cycle is what's seen as cool and or trendy. Like I think a lot of social media functions off of following trends, right? That's why the algorithm is like function this way in YouTube to like capitalize on, I don't know, back when slime was a thing, everything in trending was about slime and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of social media is focused around trends, and trends themselves are very fad focused, right? It's always what's hip, what's new, what's constant, right? Whatever's in your face the longest and people retain it the longest, that's what's cool. It doesn't matter if you think something else is cool. If the trends in the algorithm say it's cool, it must be cool. And I think a lot of that sort of trickles down into the users. And so social media itself is seen as this cool, trendy thing, and not having it means you're outside of that like trend, and therefore you're seen as uncool.
Yeah, I think it lowers your invisible social standing if you don't have a social media account. And I think people also get social media not just to improve their standing, but also because they have a fear of missing out or FOMO, right? So they want to make sure they're up to date on what their friends are doing and what functions are going to and what concerts they're going to, or even just knowing what's up in their friend's life. So I think people get social media and stay on social media because they want to be up to date on everything that's going on. And they just can't stomach the idea of, living in your own world.
Yeah, I think what's even more ironic is the fact that social media, in particular Instagram, breeds a very, very FOMO mentality, because a lot of people sort of really cater their feeds and make them, you know what I'm talking about, right? Where their feeds are like all the same type of like filter, all the same type of color, and they try to make their feed more aesthetic and try to make them seem like they're having the maximum amount of fun. I think that is the issue that is like tackled the most, because it seems like if you don't have social media, you you have the fear of missing out. But then when you do have social media, the fear is even more intensified because you see people doing all these fun things and you're missing out.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
exactly. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. I interrupted you last time, so
Okay, hey, thank you. That's very gracious of you. I think I would agree that when people go on Instagram, they're getting like a toxic version of what's real. So they go on thinking that they're gonna, keep FOMO at bay and keep up to date what's going on. But what's really happening is they're keeping up to date with like the top 1% of what's going on, right? And then this reminds me of a conversation I had with that friend whose going away party it was yesterday. I think she said that when you're comparing yourself with other people on social media, you're comparing your normal everyday life with their best life, right? So even if you are on social media to keep up to date with people, you're not really keeping up to date with their actual lives. You're keeping up to date with like the best possible part of their life.
Converse,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off again, Alex, but I wanted to bring this up was conversely, this has created sort of a trend where people make what's called a fake Instagram or a Finsta for short, where they detail the worst possible parts of their lives and just go on rants about the highest negative aspects of their life. And I think that is equally as toxic because I am a personal believer. You shouldn't be airing out your dirty laundry. You should keep private things private. Not in the sense where it's like, oh, I never tell any of my friends that I'm like going through mental health issues, but it's more along the lines of like airing it out like this doesn't do much for you, but talking to your friends and really trying to sort it out and putting effort that you took into like procuring this Insta account into bettering yourself. That's where your effort should be going.
Yeah, for sure. I think something I was gonna add is like I've noticed there's been a trend of posting a second a day, like for every day of the year, so you can kind of just show the highlights of what's been going on in your life. And I remember watching one dude's 1 second a day video, and yeah, I kind of caught myself in that same situation where I was comparing my normal day life with I guess the highlight with their highlight reels, and especially magnified because they had the whole point of it is like it's like literally every day of your life. So it's almost like every day of my life is super great, right? And there are definitely aspects of his life where I was like pretty jealous, where like he was playing volleyball all the time, like he was hanging out with all these different types of people. He like interned in like a different state, so like it just looked like he was living out the ideal college life, and something I realized later is like it's not like every single day was great. Like there are a lot of times when people like will do a second, they'll just like put their phone up like this. So it's basically just like they're trying to capture something, but it's ultimately like a scene of nothing, right? So whereas like you take your phone up, you point at the ceiling, or like you're driving somewhere and you just point it like at the highway or something. Like maybe on those days like there was nothing going on, right? But then I think because it's like kind of so embedded in the video, like it kind of leads you to think that like everything in that video is like every second or every day of his life has been great. But obviously like it's a whole year. So like he definitely had days where like he wasn't feeling great, or, days where, it just wasn't it. Right. And I realized like even in those days, for most days, there at least was 1 second of the day where he felt happy and he felt like he had a good time. And then, yeah, I think in a way that is a little inspiring. Like, I think it's something like maybe this was like kind of like a negative side of social media that kind of turned into something positive. Because like, even if you're having a rough day, it's not like 100% of that day is bad. Hopefully, you never know.
Yeah. And to start wrapping things up and sort of like get on the back of the wagon of the social media bit. Final question I want to ask today is like, since we're talking about social media in our quote unquote best lives, what would your best life snapshot look like right now? Like if you could do anything, what would you be doing right
Hmm.
I'm not sure myself. Do you have something in mind, Ben?
So what I had in mind is I would have really liked to go to that Japan trip mentioned that I was planning with Alex, because that was like going to be the culmination of our college experience. We're like, oh, we're gonna take senior trip, we're gonna have like ultimate goodbye, and then we'll just like split ways, and then like we'll still be friends after that, and like this is like the ultimate sayonara, you know?
I'm gonna piggyback off that too. Because I too looked forward to that Japan trip. Funny thing, we didn't really plan that. So then when it got canceled in March, or when we had to cancel it, it wasn't too big of an L. But I think it would have been fun. It would be like it was the first trip I planned with friends that was purely to go with friends. Like it wasn't for like another reason. Because I've been on trips technically with my friends, but it was like either for a conference or it was like a retreat. So you had to do something. So not quite the same, but I think that would have been really nice. And yeah, I think it's just one of those big moments in life that you think about later on.
Yeah, for me, I guess my best life right now would probably be to like graduate seminary with pretty decent grades. So far, I've taken one test in Greek and I got a 59. So I'm constantly thinking about, oh, I need to study more. Oh, I'm not doing enough work. And after having worked in the industry for 6 years, where I got to just turn my brain off at 6 p.m., I don't like how I'm always concerned that I should be doing more right now. It's hard to get away from that productivity mindset. But yeah, I would say just doing well in school while keeping a good balance between my friends and serving at church, and yeah, just I think I'm doing most of that. It's just the school part that is weighing me down right now.
Mm. Yeah, don't worry, you'll get there one day. I mean, seminary is known for being pretty difficult, at least from what I've heard from people who've been to seminary. So yeah, the comeback starts now.
Thanks.
Anyway, yeah, this was a good episode on social norms and our kind of thoughts on what we think of specific social norms and kind of analyzing that. But yeah, this is Nuanced Nonsense. We're not experts. We just like talking and signing out.